Welcome to my new 2020 video, so let's start. Diving in, as many of you know, JB Pritzker is the governor of Illinois. I do think, because it's his home state, he would win here by a safe margin, but historically, the last time he was on the ballot in Illinois, he only won here by 12-ish%, and that was very much a big underperformance. While back in 2018, he defeated Bruce Rauner, who was a Republican, and in 2024, Kamala Harris barely won here by 10.9%. He is quite lucky that he's from the state of Illinois, so I think that saves him from not underperforming bigly in Illinois, unlike other states like New York, where I do see Pritzker's wealth being a big problem to voters. And I think this would really leave him quite wide open to attacks from JD Vance of how he's an elitist billionaire, which could also hurt with the Democratic base. But it's a double-edged sword, since being a billionaire would help him with donors and being able to market himself in the campaign TV ads. But at the end of the day, nominating a billionaire by the Democrats would be seen as a bad move in my opinion. And I think New York only goes for the Democrats by 10 to 12%. Before I forget, sorry about that. Texas, Florida, these two, they easily go for the GOP, I think. His immigration stance, which is something I'm going to talk later, is going to do horribly in states like Florida and Texas, especially Texas. And to be honest, I wouldn't even be surprised if Vance in 2028 would do even better than Trump in Texas, while in Florida, I think one of the few states you can make a bet that it's going to be more red than 2024. And so yeah, easily safe far. We can now move on to the 2nd district. I think JD Vance against someone that is like Pritzker, I think he would do terribly on a national level, and I think he would tank in the rural areas. So I think he could actually, Vance could actually improve on Trump's margins in this district, and I think he wins here by 9 to 11%. While for Maine at large, not much to say here. Like I said, Pritzker tanks in the rules, also has really low name recognition apart from like the Midwest and Illinois. I rarely would say this, but I think he actually does worse than Harris in Maine at large. I think he wins by a likely margin. I'm not too sure about that, but I'm going to say 5 to 7% here. And now let's see, for Virginia is one of the few states that I kind of feel like Pritzker would fit in quite well, because Pritzker is not extremely far left like a progressive Omar Tlaib, but he's also not like a centrist, like maybe like a Fetterman or more like a Warner. And I think he would fit in Virginia okay. I'm going to say that even with his stance on like gun control, which Virginia's kind of meh on, wins Virginia, but barely. Like a resounding victory would be like 5 to 7%. So theoretically speaking, it could be even a bit lower than Kamala's margin, in my opinion. But yeah. And now for the 2nd district of Nebraska, I think the problem that comes here for Pritzker is that he doesn't really have working class appeal, and being a billionaire really takes away from that. And this is where you're going to see JB Pritzker do quite bad, apart from Iowa and Ohio being safe far. Barely overperforms Harris. I do think maybe he does a bit better in like the cities like Chicago, New York City, Los Angeles, but I think he tanks everywhere else essentially. I think he does okay in the 2nd district of Nebraska, but he only wins here by barely 5% on the dot. Basically, like, almost doesn't improve at all from Kamala's margin for a race that is very much, I might get some heat for this, but I think in Arizona, his immigration policy, like I said before, of JB Pritzker is quite liberal. He's also quite adamant against Trump's migration ICE raids, and has even threatened Trump to take legal action and basically try to stop ICE from mass deportations in Illinois, and basically almost calling it a safe haven for immigrants, similar to like Minnesota. And immigration, and I should just say that deportations, I think mass deportations overall, are just approved by a majority of voters, and that I think that's going to be something that's going to come back to haunt Pritzker in 2028 quite a lot. He's going to try to moderate, but I think he actually does so bad in Arizona that he mimics the same margin of Kamala Harris in 2024 and loses here by 4 to 6%, which is crazy. And even crazier than that is the fact that New Mexico, I have a feeling that New Mexico, with someone like JB Pritzker, I think Pritzker will do well with maybe some Latino woman, but I think he would tank with a Latino man, just like Kamala Harris did. Kind of tempted to put this as lean. I'm going to put this as a lean state, and I think JB Pritzker, especially since I think he's going to do quite bad with independents, as we saw in his past elections, he would only win here by 3 to 5%, barely a lean margin victory for Democrats here. And I think that, like I said before, the Hispanic vote is still going to trend to the right, not as much as it did previous years, but it's going to trend a bit more to the right, and that does mean you're going to see things like Arizona likely R with backhanded like JB Pritzker, and New Mexico likely being lean D. And back to big city politics, which was rejected quite big in 2024 for New Jersey. I think this is one of the areas that Pritzker would be one of the few Democrats that would really showcase the big city politics trend from 2024 to 2028. He's the governor and basically the leader of Chicago, a big city, and it has a lot of crime problems that could be related to him. And I think that Vance would take advantage of this and try to hammer as much as possible Pritzker on that. And I think that would work. Still, I don't think would flip for the GOP, but I think it would be very, very much an embarrassing low margin of victory for the Democrats here by only 3 to 5%. So yeah, lean D New Jersey. For a quick state, North Carolina, I think JB Pritzker would do quite average. I think he wouldn't really decrease that much from 2024 from Kamala Harris, and I also don't think he would improve too much. I know that Kamala only losing North Carolina by 3.2% in that R+6 national environment is something that is kind of under talked in my opinion, or maybe it could just mean that she got really high turnout with African-American voters. Even though we have likely R Arizona, I don't think it'd be likely R North Carolina. JD Vance, VP Vance, I should say, wins here by 1.5% to 3.5%. Yeah, I think that's a fair margin. For a big working class state, for Nevada, a state that is heavily Latino, working class, labor unions, and a bit of gun control and education, there's a shot that JB Pritzker could flip Nevada. I could see that if the national environment, or I should say the mood of the nation is towards things like social issues like abortions, women's rights, gay rights. I think that could be a pathway for Pritzker to win. But if the economy is good, pro ratings for Trump are in the 45% range, and Vance just slams Pritzker for his gun control. Vance should have won here by a lean margin. I think the Latino trend basically saves Vance in this state from being very close, and I think Vance wins here by, I'm going to say, 1 to 3%. And now for Pennsylvania, big state for both parties to win. The issue for JB Pritzker, the big city politics, it's gonna come back to haunt him. He has very much similar problem to Gavin Newsom, but instead of the elitism that Newsom shows quite a lot, he has the fact that he's a billionaire. I know he's a philanthropist and he's done a lot of good things if you actually look it up, but at the end of the day, I think voters are gonna go for the guy that is more from a simpler background, not born into wealth, not born with a golden spoon, as some people would say, middle class America. And as long as Trump is approved of, like I said before, I think, and Pennsylvania could be trending to the right, but yeah. And like I said, I think Vance will win Pennsylvania. I think that's gonna be the hardest state for Pritzker to win, because not only is it the most friendly to Vance, in my opinion, it's also the most farthest away from JB Pritzker. And Vance would win here by 1 to 3%. While for Michigan, I am a bit torn about this one because of 2024 and 2020 and how close it was in 2016. As you can see here, absurdly close. And similar to Pennsylvania, I think it's going to come down to who has the better working class appeal, who can bring out the base, basically just who is better with independent voters. And I think Vance fulfills at the moment 2 out of those 3 criterias, and that does make me think Vance would win Michigan narrowly, though, by, let's say, 0.75% to 2.75%. Could be tilt, but I'm gonna say lean R just barely, though. And now for New Hampshire, as many of you know, New Hampshire is an extremely isolationist state. You could even argue one of the most isolationist states throughout the union, and JD Vance could be the most isolationist nominee by a party since Calvin Coolidge in 1924, more than a century, and will be 104 years in 2028. And that could be a pathway for JD Vance to win New Hampshire. Still, the main problem for him is the fact that I think the social issues like abortion and trans rights, minority rights, I think that does help JB Pritzker narrowly win New Hampshire, even though Vance would have isolationism and gun rights. Still, it would be a very close state with Pritzker against Vance, and would be very fun to see. But yeah, it could be a rug shout for the GOP to flip in 2020 in this matchup, or any other matchup, to be honest. Pritzker would win here by only 0.75% to 2.75%. So yeah, very close, and a must-watch state. Yeah, this kind of sticking out like a sore thumb. Minnesota. I know that JB Pritzker has good relationships with the labor unions in Illinois, but the problem is he doesn't have a working class appeal. The billionaire stuff would actually be more of a con to him than a pro. I think Minnesota, just because of the streak, straight up just because of the streak, since 1976 would still vote for a Democrat. But this time around, it barely would vote for the Democrat, and maybe could go to the GOP if the tariff stuff actually does work out in the long term. Maybe we'd see a return of the Red North in the future. But yeah, Pritzker wins here by, I'm gonna say, 0.5% to 2.5%. Yeah, there we go. Sorry about that. Meant to put as a lean margin. 1.5% on the dot victory for Pritzker, which is similar to how Clinton won here. Briefly, we can go to Georgia. And here's the issue for Republicans is that the state is just going to trend to the left. I could even see Pritzker winning this state in 2028 if the environment is neutral. I do think he's not the best candidate, and I think the elitism that he would show would just be enough for the GOP to narrowly keep this state in 2028, but most likely would be the last hurrah unless something big happens in the future. And yeah, 0.75% victory for the GOP here. And Wisconsin, it's not going to be a big surprise that I think the GOP would narrowly keep a hold of the state. It was very close. In 2024, as you can see, barely went for Trump by 0.86% in the closest race. Yet again, even though Pritzker is from Illinois, I think Vance would narrowly keep this state and win these three key Rust Belt swing states in 2028. And as you can see, VP JD Vance wins with 312 electoral votes, while JB Pritzker gets 226 electoral votes. Let me know what your map looks like. As always, feel free to leave a like and join the Discord and the channel membership. Have a good rest of your day.